Hello friends, I am Tom Downey. Let's talk trade to get things going on today's video. We'll focus in on Stephon Gilmore, his holdout, what's going on there, will there be a trade, all that good stuff here. Now Gilmore, as I'm sure everyone knows, held out of mandatory minicamp. Now ESPN, both Jeremy Fowler and Mike Reese report that there's no what they called acrimony, which is a big fancy word for saying they still get along pretty well. Which means I think there is a very good possibility a deal gets done before the season. Now, that's something that Stephon Gilmore wants. Him skipping mandatory minicamp was a, relatively speaking, cheaper way to help kickstart those talks because he's on his age, or beyond age 30 now. He wants a big fat new contract when he's getting rather underpaid this season. Now, exactly how much money Gilmore could get is, well, not too clear. I don't think at his age, Stephon Gilmore would be able to command the $19-20 million salaries that Ramsey and Humphrey got. I do think Darius Slay, a similarly older cornerback, is a good benchmark. I could see Gilmore getting, let's just say, $17 million per year. If you get 2019 Stephon Gilmore, oh, that's a steal at that cost. Now, the reason why there might be some hesitancy for either a team to have a trade interest there or for the Patriots to pay him himself is due in large part due to the regression we saw in 2020. Now, Gilmore was banged up. That is the reality of the situation for the Patriots. He wasn't the same guy this past year. The numbers across the board all went in the wrong direction. Higher completion percentage, more yards per target, more touchdowns allowed. Granted, one's still really good. The pass breakups fell off a cliff, as did the interceptions. Now, that is a potential red flag for the Patriots to pay him and for a team to have interest. If the Patriots wanted to trade Stephon Gilmore, I think they'd be okay at corner. I love Jones in the nickel. We'll see if Miles Bryant can emerge as a piece, if Joe Juwan Williams ends up being anything for this team, which I think is a pretty big question mark as we sit right now. There's also J.C. Jackson, who's due for a big fat contract himself. They also signed Jalen Mills to a relatively decent-sized contract. So the Patriots have corners if they wanted to move on from Stephon Gilmore. But this is a team that I believe is still trying to win football games right now. They still want to be a contender in 2021. Keeping Stephon Gilmore, as Bill Belichick himself gets near the back end of his coaching career, helps the team accomplish that. So make your predictions for me. What will the Patriots end up doing with Stephon Gilmore? Type in K for they're going to keep him, or type in T for they'll trade him. More trade talk here around the Cleveland Browns. Could they go after Leighton Vander Esch? Yeah, it's an interesting one, right? Now, this comes to us from Bleacher Report. They suggested a trade for each NFL team. And their trade idea was, hey, what if the Browns went out, since they need linebacker help, right? And they got Leighton Vander Esch. Now, I don't think that linebacker is a strong point in terms of the roster for Cleveland. It's not built to be. They want to go cheap at that position. But making things complicated here is that Leighton Vander Esch is coming off 2 down years in a row. And I think the offer that Bleacher Report put together is way too much. I got to be honest here. Like, the Cowboys get a 2023 third-round pick. Now, it's a future third. It's worth a round less, so, we'll call it a 4th-round pick this year. I still think that's an awful lot for a player of Leighton Vander Esch's current caliber. If you get rookie LV, as we'll get into, okay. But a 3rd-round pick right now for LVE, I think that's a horrible trade for the Browns. Yes, LVE might be able to start for you, but I think that's a pretty significant overpay. I think LVE right now probably worth more of a 5th-round pick in the NFL trade market because you're not guaranteed to get 2018 Vander Esch. Back then, turn back the clock right, LVE, Jalen Smith, they look like the best young linebacker duo in the NFL. I said they were the best young linebacker duo. 2 years later, oops, big L on my part because LVE has not been the same guy. Frankly, not even all that close. More games, fewer tackles, a flatlined tackle for loss production, just 1.5 sacks. The pass coverage, most importantly, has very much dropped in the wrong direction. And that is a major red flag for any team that would have interest in adding Leighton Vander Esch. Now, you can find a role for him, right? Even with the Browns adding Anthony Walker and Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Maybe you let Vander Esch play the weak side linebacker, which I think is his best spot in the NFL. And yes, there are snaps for him, but I want to let Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah kind of take over that weak side linebacker position. So because of that, I don't like it that much for the Browns. I don't think it's a good fit. I don't think the cost is way too high. If he gets cut, different conversation. He's not going to get cut. But if he does get cut, different conversation. So because of that, I don't think it's a good fit for Cleveland. Now, what I want you guys to do is let me know in the comments section a player that you want to trade for. Could be any player, any team, whatever. Get your votes in and let me know what player you guys want to go get. Folks, the NBA Draft Lottery is here. It is tonight. We get our coverage started at 7:30 Eastern Time. We'll break down everything going on, where teams are picking. We'll even do a live post-lottery mock draft for you guys. So if you want to know what the NBA Draft order looks like, hit that big red button and subscribe right now. Let's chat Denver Broncos now. Namely, could the Denver Broncos go out and try to add Mitchell Schwartz? Now, we've mentioned offensive tackles a lot around Denver since Juwan James's injury occurred and his time ended with the Denver Broncos. And Schwartz has popped up before. He's once again been linked to Denver, this time by Bleacher Report. There are some significant buts here, because when healthy, I think everybody in a sane mind would be like, yes, Mitchell Schwartz is an upgrade for the Denver Broncos. But he's coming off injury. As we'll get into more in depth later on, I think the medical could be a major problem. I don't know if Schwartz will even be able to play this season. Now, Bleacher Report listed 4 teams that could be landing spots for Mitchell Schwartz. The aforementioned Denver Broncos. The Chicago Bears also made this list. Maybe the Morgan Moses losers of this battle, if you would. The Miami Dolphins, who seem to get ready to go with Liam Eichenberg at right tackle. The Tennessee Titans, matter of time before Dylan Radins earns that job, but stopgaps. That's what Mitchell Schwartz would provide for all of those teams, and that in theory would be the exact same thing as Denver. And if Denver hadn't already made moves at the tackle position, I would be on board with this. But I think the depth chart situation for Denver, the commitments that have been made, make this a little bit unlikely. Garrett Bowles locked and loaded after a breakout year at left tackle. They signed Bobby Massey to be the team's right tackle. Now, Schwartz is better when healthy, but they've already committed to Bobby Massey. Cam Fleming, as he's been for the past couple years, primed to be a swing tackle. So all of a sudden, with the investment Denver's made, I don't really know how you get Schwartz on this team, even if he's healthy. Now, if you know, which you're not going to know, that Mitchell Schwartz is guaranteed to be the guy he was in his prime, honestly, I think you would go do it. I think at that point you find a way to make it work, and you say, okay, well, look, even in an injury-plagued year last year when he was never quite 100%, Bobby Massey was still way better. Not Bobby Massey. Mitchell Schwartz was still way better than what most tackles offer. And look, even 2020, good. 2019, didn't allow a sack. And as a reminder, the Patrick Mahomes offense, where he likes to drop back, and this is something Andy Reid has acknowledged in the past, it is less conducive to allowing or protecting the tackles. He drops back very far in the pocket, helps the tackles allow more hurries. But Schwartz, when healthy, has been one of, if not the outright best, right tackle in the entirety of the NFL. So if he's 100%, which I don't know if he's going to be, I think the medical is a major red flag there. It's the single biggest reason why I'm not so sure on it. Maybe the team should explore it there. Now, Denver did pay Bobby Massey, and they could save some money if they were to cut him. He got a 1-year, $2.5 million deal. Incentives bring that up to $4 million. So there's a lot of extra money that could be had for Bobby Massey. That was originally reported as a $4 million deal. They did guarantee him $1 million of his base of his signing bonus there, and like a little over $500,000 of his base salary. So if they were to cut him, they'd save $700,000. So not massive savings there. Because of that, because they think Massey can be the guy, the contract kind of reflects that. I don't know if in the end Mitchell Schwartz ends up being the most likely destination for Denver. I think there are other teams that, if he's healthy, could use him a little bit more. Maybe even Bobby Massey's own former team. So make your predictions for me right now, folks, in the comments section. Where do you believe Mitchell Schwartz will end up signing? Get your votes in and let me know what you guys think. More trade talk now, this time around the Washington football team and Anthony Miller. Could a trade go down? Now, as we've mentioned before, Bleacher Report made a trade for each team. And a lot of these were bad. They were like, this is wildly overvaluing a player. This doesn't fit a team need whatsoever. And they suggested that Washington trade for Anthony Miller. Now, Anthony Miller is on the market. Whenever a team like the Bears leaks there's trade interest around a player, it means there is no interest. And they want interest. And Bleacher Report mentioned Miller as a buy low candidate. And it makes me wonder if there was a typo in this article, like across the board, because they did this many times, mentioning buy lows, and then suggesting the Bears get a third-round pick for Anthony Miller, which makes absolutely no sense. This is a nonsensical trade for Washington. Doesn't really fill a need, and it's a major overpay for a guy who hasn't been that productive lately. Allow me to be blunt. It's a trash trade. This does not make sense. This would be a move that you go, wait, they just did, huh? What? Why would that make sense for Washington? Long story short, it really doesn't. So with the Anthony Miller conversation in mind here, let me know what you guys think. What would you be willing to trade for Anthony Miller? Because I think his value right now is like a 6th or a 7th round pick. I'm talking late day 3. Maybe that's what BR meant. They meant to put down day 3 instead, wrote 3rd round instead. It doesn't make sense to me. So let me know. What would you trade for Anthony Miller? Now in 2020, 49 grabs, 485 yards, 2 touchdowns. Okay, that's not that bad. That's got some semblance of value here in terms of making an impact. The issue is for Anthony Miller, wasn't even his best year. You could argue even that was maybe his worst year, because from an average perspective, from a yards per catch viewpoint, well, it certainly was. 2018, his first year, 7 touchdowns, red zone machine. You're like, oh yeah, this guy, he's going to be an impact player for us. 2019, more receptions, touchdowns dip, but hey, maybe he emerges as like a legitimate number 2 receiver in Chicago, and that never happened. He really lost out in the end to Mooney. The Bears haven't utilized him nearly the way that, frankly, I myself thought he was going to be utilized coming out of college. Now, Washington last year, Miller, he probably better than Cam Simmons. He could be wide receiver too. Yes, except for this. Washington has already overhauled their receiver room. If you're trading a 3rd round pick, you're saying Anthony Miller makes this team. Well, Terry McLaurin's he's going to start. Curtis Samuel's going to start. Diami Brown's going to play a huge role, probably as a 3rd round pick himself. So that means you're giving up a 3rd round pick for a guy at best who's going to be wide receiver 4 for you? Like, what are you doing? And you've got Adam Humphries, Cam Sims, Steven Sims was their 3rd leading receiver last year in terms of catches. Kelvin Harmon, Antonio Gandy-Golden. The Washington football team does not need Anthony Miller. Frankly, that's a stupid trade idea.